It is a foundation that's been set up by one of the most successful IT entrepreneurs in the world. It is a foundation that has an endowment of over $1 billion. It is a foundation that's committed almost $650 million to various projects across the world. It is a foundation that focuses on children living in urban poverty in India. It is the Michael and Susain Dell Foundation. He's one of the world's most recognized and respected college dropouts. 25 years ago, he laid the foundation for an IT business that is today a $100 billion company. But about a decade back, Michael Dell realized his life's work was incomplete without giving back to those less privileged. That vision saw the birth of the Michael and Susain Dell Foundation in 1999 with a personal contribution of $1 billion.
Our focus has always been on children living in urban poverty. We're not looking for the biggest problems, we're looking for the biggest opportunities to transform the lives of those children through better health and education.
It's been a 5-year-long journey for the Michael and Susain Dell Foundation in India. They've already committed $70 million and the focus and the effort now is on scaling up. Varun Mohanty is heading the India operations and he's on a mission to transform the lives of as many children in India as he possibly can. Varun Mohanty and his team of 8 program managers are partnering NGOs like Gyanshala and Naandi to change the education landscape in Indian cities. The foundation is also working with other philanthropic bodies like the Dr. Reddy's Foundation to impart vocational training to high school dropouts and the unemployed youth. And aiming to create a stable environment for children by supporting economically challenged households by supporting microfinance institutions like Janalakshmi. Let me start by asking you about your experience in India. The Michael and Susain Dell Foundation started actively working in India in about 2005, so it's been a 5-year journey. How would you summarize it?
India is very hard to ignore in the context of children that require help. 20% of the world's children live here. The statistics are mind-numbing, and so we were very clear early on that as the foundation went international, India should be and will be a major and first port of call. How has the journey been? It's been humbling in many ways because we spend a lot of our time actually going to the slums which we are trying to help improve. And that is indeed helping. So no matter how much strategy you come up with, it's very difficult to make sure that that implements with the work. So we try and focus on 3 things. We say that, you know, focusing on measurable outcomes is one of the most important things for us, because unless you really know scientifically how children are improving, it doesn't really help. And I would say in the last 5 years, that's been a major area of our focus. The second, which we're getting into much more now, is to look at scale and sustainability, because ultimately we are just catalysts, and we cannot personally or through the foundation do anything for every child in India. The third is, I think one of our value added is that we get deeply engaged with our partner organizations in the problem solving of how things are actually put in place.
Right. But why the decision to focus on children living in urban poverty? I would imagine that, you know, given the state of rural India at this point in time, that would have perhaps been the natural choice or the obvious choice. Why the decision to actually look at urban poverty?
In the scheme of India's requirements, amount of resource that we have is very small, and the best way to make an impact is to be focused. Ours is an extraordinarily focused organization. Michael is focused, so we wanted to pick an area where we were sure we could make an impact. So we have absolutely no issues with helping in rural areas whatsoever, but we've chosen, given our mission and our resources, to focus on urban.
But how different is the ecosystem in India, for instance? You're also the foundation is also operating in the US, it's also operating in South Africa. How differently are you sort of placed here in India, and are the challenges very different here as well?
The mission of the foundation is on the children, so the children are pretty much the same no matter where you go in the world. Of course the situation is very different. So in the US there is a lot more information about children. However, they have their own set of issues with learning levels and so on. There the kind of interventions that we work on have much to do with things like performance management, where you take the data for granted and then you use it to come up with insights about how to improve what you can do in the schools. In India, we're setting up the infrastructure to get that kind of a data.
Right.
And our approach is, we'll do what it takes to help the child.
It's about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and most of the children studying at the government primary school in the Charminar area of Hyderabad have dispersed. But there is one group that's staying back. These children are part of an academic support center, or what we would call a tuition class run by a not-for-profit organization, Naandi. The idea here is simple. Every child deserves equal opportunity to succeed. So Naandi over the last 5 years has worked with some of India's leading educationists to develop models that are creative and based on problem solving. Children are divided into groups with a child leader helping fellow students understand what is being taught. And leading the classroom here is one of Naandi's 1200 community activists, Mohammadi Begum, a 10th standard pass out who doesn't teach but facilitates learning.
स्कूल के साथ साथ जो है एक्स्ट्रा, जैसा कि ट्यूशन नांदी की तरफ से है, बच्चों को ट्यूशन में हेल्प हो रही है, ऐसा इस तरीके से बच्चों को पढ़ने में आसानी हो रही है। ऐसा जो स्लो लर्नर जो स्टूडेंट्स रहते हैं उनको क्या हो रहा है, इसमें बेनिफिट हो रहा है कि वो लोग स्टडी अच्छी तरीके से कर सक रहे।
Naandi is one of Michael and Susain Dell Foundation's first grantees. CEO Manoj Kumar believes the key to Naandi's success has been the foundation's VC-like approach, which means being able to take risks and the ability to stay the course. The $10 million it has received in grants has been used to achieve scale and create a pool of committed young professionals like Shantanu, a graduate from UK's Sussex University, who's now working with Naandi to manage 350 schools in Hyderabad.
To create an education template for grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, grade 4, grade 5 in Maths, Urdu and Telugu and other languages including Marathi was something we needed a really strong professional philanthropic outfit to come as a venture capitalist equivalent and put money on us and take risks that we might fail, we may need mid-course correction, we may need early on correction, and all this would cost money, all this would need patience and trust. They said, we are with you.
Over the next 3 years, Naandi wants to reach out to 520 schools and 35,000 children in Hyderabad and Mumbai. Next on the agenda is moving the program to other cities and setting up an institute to distribute its curriculum.
You know, some reports that are actually studying the use of or the impact of philanthropy in countries like India seem to suggest at this point in time that the funding market in a sense is broken. Would you agree with that? Do you also feel that there is a lack of information? How do you actually optimize, or how do you actually measure the effectiveness, as you were pointing out, of what you're doing through the foundation?
The way we look at it is that our mission is to genuinely transform children's lives. So unless you measure the outcomes of what happens to these children in learning levels in education, in actually houses built, if we look at the indirect market through microfinance,
Right.
or in jobs actually obtained through our work in vocational training, we never really know.
So what is the process that you actually use to be able to measure effectiveness?
So we've put a lot of resource to that, and we, for almost 100% of our grants, we use a third-party external scientific assessment organization
Right.
to look at grade-specific learning levels of children and how they change, and use that information to go back and improve the program. A case in point is the Naandi Foundation's work that they've done initially in Hyderabad. In many ways, they started the process of getting external assessments to be done.
Right.
And many a time during the course of the work with them, they found that the assessments were saying that the child was not improving necessarily as quickly as we had all hoped. So that gave them and us, but then more importantly, the tools to drill down into why that was happening.
Some people suggest that foundations like yours are more successful because you don't really have to worry about vote bank politics. So you can actually go out there and fund causes that are not sort of electoral causes in that sense. And the other thing is that because you're not associated directly with Dell, you don't really have to worry about financial returns or any of that. Has that really made life simpler for you?
We really think children in India deserve a better future, they deserve a better education, they deserve decent housing, health and sanitation. That focus is never controversial or political.
Right.
And so we've never had to worry about what
But the
will
approach
anybody
will be
think.
different from what the approach of government bodies, for instance, would
So
perhaps be.
government has its own set
Yeah.
of tasks. We work in close coordination with government many times. Much of our programs are set up in a way that as they get more successful,
Yeah.
as the cost of the programs are driven down, our hope is that government actually takes them over.